Hello fellow gamers, my name is Ed and welcome to my very first YouTube video. In this video I kind of want to take a video game introspective, if you will. Us as gamers, we are incredibly fickle creatures. There's no cutting, no getting around that. That's just mostly a fact. Mostly it falls under the category of we have the things that we like about video games and we don't necessarily want those things to change. So I wanted to kind of look at a couple of arguments that I've done myself and give a counter argument to why these things aren't as bad as gamers make them out to be. So with that in mind, let's get this video started. For this first argument, I want to talk about the fact that many gamers, friends of mine even, complain about there being too many remakes and too many remasters out there, which seems a little weird because there's enough original content out there. I don't think there's too much of an issue, but it's also the same issue that a lot of moviegoers have, that there's too many remakes, too many sequels, stuff like that. Admittedly, in the video game world, there have been some terrible remakes. The two ones that come to mind right away is the GTA trilogy remastered. It looks worse somehow than the original games. And then Warcraft 3 Reforged, same thing. And when it comes to remakes, remasters, what I think gamers really want is a cleaner, more modern experience to these games. Some of the best examples of doing that are, look at any of the Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4. All those remakes were fantastic. Chef's kiss, mwah, perfect. Final Fantasy VII remake, although many Final Fantasy fans are kind of divided by this game, there's no doubt in my mind that it's a fantastic remake, remastered, whatever you want to call it, because it took a 20 plus year old game and modernized it for the new consumer. And I think that's awesome. Now, the one bad side about too many remakes and remasters, you kind of run into the Last of Us and Elder Scrolls Skyrim problem, where it feels like Skyrim has released 20 or so different versions of this game instead of coming out with the newest Skyrim Elder Scrolls game that everybody wants instead. To be fair, though, I think sometimes it's necessary. You have to look at what games are doing to remake and remaster. For me personally, I'm a huge fan of the Metal Gear Solid series. Metal Gear Solid 3 is currently being worked on as a remake or a remaster, whatever you want to call it. And I can tell you, I am so hyped for it. It looks beautiful. It takes this game that I grew up with and it looks like it's amping it up. And I can tell you for sure, I am so excited for it. So, for my second argument though, I kind of want to talk about how some gamers believe games are too easy nowadays, or they're being dumbed down for the modern day audience. Even with games like Elden Ring or the newest one, Black Myth Wukong, many gamers still complain about games being too easy. Most of this comes to, I think, mostly puzzles, especially in like the Uncharted or Tomb Raider series, where the puzzles feel super underwhelming. You don't have a sense of accomplishment. And not only that, but a lot of these games are just too linear. They handhold you throughout the story, so by the time you get to the end, you don't feel like you've accomplished anything. But that's not how I see it. When looking at games today and comparing them to games of, even going to the PS3, PS4 era games, maybe, where games would have a self-contained tutorial completely separate from the rest of the game, and it's telling you like press A, press B, whatever you have to get through this tutorial, learn it. Nowadays though, games kind of throw you into the thick of it, and they're like, all right, here's what you can do, we're going to guide you on this path, figure it out as you go. There's so many secrets and everything that you can explore. Look at Elden Ring. It's such a massive game and it doesn't really handhold you through anything, and the beginning part of the game is story related. So the tutorial isn't really a tutorial. It's just like, hey, we're going to take it easy on you just for now. But don't worry, things are about to ramp up quickly. And thinking about that, a lot of games nowadays offer multiple difficulties. I know that was a thing back in the past, but nowadays it's more prevalent. And what makes it even more so cool to me is the fact that a lot of them will offer up an extra difficulty after you beat the game. Letting players go back and have a more challenging experience. And a lot of these difficulties, especially if there's puzzles involved with it, the puzzles are going to be ramped up. And gamers have to bring their A game when they go into these games. So I can tell you right now, games, some of them may be linear, but I think at the end of the day, they're not being dumbed down. They're just linear, trying to tell you a story for the most part. And it's up to you to decide how you want to go about this story. So for that, I have to tell gamers, like, you know, take it a game at a time. You know, make it harder on yourself. Like, one of the perfect examples of making a game harder is something like Pokemon. So many people do these Nuzlocke challenges, making Pokemon has always been incredibly easy. I don't think anybody's ever debated that fact. But then you add in this Nuzlocke, and where you pick a Pokemon, and there's varying rules and everything. But like, once a Pokemon faints, you lose that Pokemon forever, and you have to, replace them with somebody else. But that's just the thing, is gamers find a way. Life finds a way. And I think that's the same with games. I think we have to take it, we can't take it for granted. Let's just say that. Now, although there are gamers that think that video games are a little too easy nowadays, that doesn't stop them from complaining about video games being too long. Now, I think when they talk about these types of games, they refer a lot to games like the new God of War series, or even Elden Ring, where both games can probably be relatively beaten relatively quickly. I would say anywhere between 20 to 40 hours you could beat those games. But the exploration plays such a vital role in that gaming experience that people feel like they're forced into this much longer video game that goes upwards of 70 plus, 100 plus hours just to beat it. And me personally, as a gamer, with the rising price of video games, with most games being $70 plus nowadays, I really want a game that I can sink my teeth into. Something that if I personally can get 100 plus hours in a video game, I'm going to look at that game much more favorably than I would something that takes me like 5 hours to play, and I beat it in 5 hours, and I paid, 50, $60 for it. I want something that's worth my money. And sometimes these shorter games just don't cut it for me. And honestly, if there are gamers that are complaining about a 70 plus hour video game, maybe movies are going to be more your speed. Or a better alternative is to look at the indie game market. Like, they are so underrated for what they can produce nowadays, that a lot of indie games they're going to be shorter games for the most part, but their gameplay, their storytelling is going to be on par with a lot of AAA titles nowadays. So for those gamers that think that games are too long, look at the indie game scene. There's going to be stuff there that you might find quite interesting, that you might develop a love for, and I say go for it. Don't pigeonhole other gamers to say, hey, we don't want longer games. I personally want a longer game. You know, if I'm paying that much money for a game, I want to be able to get that kind of time for that money into that game. Me personally, that's just how I feel. But who knows? Maybe you're different. If you are, power to you, I guess. There's nothing wrong with wanting a shorter game. But look at other games out there in the market. You'll be surprised what you find. One of the last arguments I kind of wanted to make is kind of also the biggest meme of the video game world, and that's mobile gaming. especially mobile gaming isn't for real gamers or serious gamers. For years, no one's really taken mobile games seriously. Everybody knows it for Angry Birds, Candy Crush, Flappy Bird, if you've played that one. But those games didn't make you a true gamer. It was just kind of casual gamers, whatever. But in today's world, mobile games offer a vast variety of what you can play. Heck, mobile games have fantastic ports nowadays that allow you to play games like the Final Fantasy series. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is on there. And even the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney games, which are fantastic games. If you haven't played them, I would highly recommend them. And even better, recommend them for your mobile device, whether that's Android or iPhone. Now, for me, it offers kind of more of a direct access to these games where you don't necessarily have to drop, hundreds of thousands of dollars on a PC on, multiple consoles. Instead, most everybody nowadays have phones that are right there by their side, and you can just play a game with such ease that it makes it so worth it, in my opinion. And with that said, though, there are some downsides to mobile gaming. There is one game in particular I'm a huge fan of. It's called Marvel Contest of Champions, and it's one of those games where it gets to a point where you get kind of locked out, and it feels like it's pay to win. You know, uh, pay to play even, because after a certain get point in the game, it feels like you're having to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, and that this is my first introduction to the term kind of whaling, where it's mostly streamers, big YouTubers who play these games, and they shell out literally thousands of dollars on this game just so they can have the most up-to-date character, champion, whatever ever have you, so they can put out more content and stuff like that. Just it makes those types of games just not as fun. I don't want to have to spend money to enjoy this game. And but on that flip side, there's still games out there that I think are very much, in line with regular gaming on your phone. It's just so easy. It's take it anywhere with you. And honestly, it's one of those things where mobile gaming has come much further than the days of Angry Bird, Flappy Bird, Candy Crush, whatever have you. And really, if gamers just want to have a more relaxed way to enjoy their games, there you should not look any further than mobile gaming. I think it's an excellent choice for those gamers looking for something easy, fun, and kind of stress-free. Sit back in your chair, whatever. Uh, you're in the car, somebody else is driving, and you don't have anything going on. Pop that bad boy open, play it on your mobile. You're good to go, I think. Me personally, that's how I feel about it. Now, before I go and give you my final thoughts, I kind of wanted to give some bonus arguments that are more personal to me, and that's kind of my thoughts on GameStop and my thoughts about giving video games a second chance after they don't do so well the first time they come out. First off, let's look at GameStop. I've always been a huge fan of going to the store, purchasing a physical copy of a game, and I understand gamers, they don't want to leave their house. They just want to download the game and play it right away. And that's fair, but I think there's an experience to going to the store, talking to, the person. Obviously GameStop has a bad rap for you take in a new game and they're like, "Oh, 5 cents," whatever. That's just a joke. But the fact remains is there's there's good things to do when you go to GameStop, especially if you pick out a game and that person's like, "Oh, hey, I also recommend you looking into this game whenever you get a chance." I think that's great. Those are great situations to, you know, get into. Like, you pick out a game that you believe you'll like, you go home, you enjoy it, and guess what? That employee recommended you another game to go and try. How can you turn that away? I feel like that's such a cool, overlooked thing in today's society where everybody just wants to sit at home, play it, get it right away, not have to deal with people. You know, to each their own, I guess. But me personally, I'm a huge fan of GameStop. I'm a huge fan of going to the stores to buy video games, at least. The other one I want to talk about is kind of giving games a second chance. There are games like Fallout 76 and No Man's Sky. Both were panned upon release. Nobody liked them. They felt hollow, and you know, a lot of gamers were just like, "Well, I'm never going back to that game," and they didn't. And even though both these games now are regarded as some of the best out there, that they really turned it around. The developers, they put a lot of their heart and soul into both these games and actually turned it into something worthwhile. But I know a lot of people who were just like, nope, they screwed me over once. I'm never going back to them. And that's such a bad way to look at it, because what if there's something out there that's truly game changing, pun intended, and you never get to experience that because you're so hard headed? I think sometimes we got to take a step back and realize, like, you know what? Let's give this game a second chance, because you never know what you're going to be missing. So, for my closing thoughts, I know at the beginning of this video I talked about how gamers can be incredibly fickle, but I do hope that watching this video kind of gives you an idea how games have developed over the years. How, mobile gaming was seen as a joke, and maybe you still think of it as a joke, but I think there's more of a seriousness to mobile gaming than there ever has been. We should honestly just stop looking for the bad things and instead focus on what we love about the passion of video games. So many of us have such a unique experience with certain games that we are so finely tuned and attached. And it'd be a shame to just give that up because we're just so fickle over everything. But honestly, I hope that you guys learned something. And if you didn't, I I implore you to do your own research. Figure it out. Figure out why some of these issues are still prevalent today. But always, I hope you like this video. Make any comments on other things that you disagree with the general gaming community. And hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Peace.